Hello, today's July 16th, 2026, and today I'll be going over the Maine Senate Democratic debate that I just watched. If you're new to this channel, if you do end up subscribing by the end of this video, you need to hit the notifications because something I've realized, I really don't have any recurring viewers anymore, despite having over 1,300 subscribers across two accounts. Most of my viewers don't come back, and it's because they don't have notifications and I get buried on their feed. And I'm really just trying to pump out a lot of content because I've missed making this content. So again, if you're new to this channel, I have one of the best records on the entirety of YouTube and the internet. Prediction wise, you should look in the description. I got all 50 states right in 2020. I do fairly well. I've never done bad in the Senate. I've never got more than one Senate seat wrong, actually. So yeah, welcome to the channel if you decide to stay. And today I'm going to talk about the four candidates and how they did in the debate and how I'm going to compare and contrast them. So there was originally like 8 main candidates that were going to be at this debate today. It ended up just being 4. I'm not really sure what happened there. I didn't follow up on it. I just saw the debate started. I went in, I tuned in, I watched it. Um, and it was definitely interesting. There is 4 candidates, like I said. It was Bellows, it was Troy Jackson, there was Shaw, and there was Peter Wood, I believe. Jordan Wood, I apologize. Jordan Wood. And there is a big thing with all of these candidates, an asterisk, if I do say so myself, and I'll just go over all the candidates and their asterisk and my takeaways from the debate. So we're going to start with Bellows, who by far was my least favorite candidate personally watching that debate. It kind of felt scripted how she was talking. She had a weird tone the entire debate. Like she's reading off of something. I don't actually believe that's what she was doing. I just feel like it's a lot of the same fake talking points that a lot of Democrats, a lot of like corporate Democrats have been using forever. And I believe that tone spoke to me as in I'm not actually going to do anything when I'm senator. That was my little takeaway from Bellows. And her big thing was how bad she lost to Susan Collins in the past. I don't think she's actually unelectable. She is very well known, so she probably is pretty electable. And her one thing was losing, like I said, losing to Collins by over 30 points in 2014. She was, as my friend had described, a sacrificial lamb, and it wasn't that deep. She wasn't very well known then, and she has come quite far. So, if you're a Democrat and you don't want to vote for Bellows purely off of, oh, she lost to Susan Collins in the past, that's probably not a good reasoning. It's actually a horrible reasoning, nothing that you should even be mentioning when you're talking about Bellows. It's just something I had to say because it is the only main critique I've seen of her. My critique of her, she seems very fake and she's not progressive enough for the state of Maine, who just nominated Plattner by large margins. I think that you need someone who reflects him more, and that was kind of what the main debate was about. Was how much are you different from Plattner? Can you keep Democrats' enthusiasm because of that? And what and how can you fight Susan Collins, who I guess is considered some sort of god in Maine? And I don't really know much about Maine local politics, but wow, she is considered an angel there apparently. And I like how they let Democrats paint the narrative that she's not, because you got to see how every candidate would answer immediately, like starting in the debate. So the next candidate I'm going to talk about was Jordan Wood. Now, Jordan Wood was considered the most centrist candidate going into this debate. However, unlike most centrists, he did not seem fake. He seemed to genuinely believe everything that he was saying, which is a problem because he flip-flopped on several issues, most notably the abolishment and or defunding of ICE. He seems to hold a negative view of ICE, but in the first question, he was like, I actually want to defund ICE. And then in the third question, he was like, what I meant by abolishing ICE was I want it to return to norm and I want to give them less power. And there's a big difference between those two statements. And he also acted like he had originally said to abolish ICE. So it sounds like he either does not know the difference, which is a big red flag, or is trying to say both to appeal to both sides, which is also a major red flag. That worries me. He's a big red flag candidate, kind of like Bellows, but at least there's actual evidence other than I didn't like Bellows' tone. Um, Off of electability, I think he's much more electable. then Jack. I think he, out of electability, he's the second most electable candidate. However, he's not my second favorite candidate. He's like my fourth favorite candidate. He was my least favorite candidate on that debate. I did not like how he flip flopped. I did not like how he presented himself. Although he did have a great way of speaking in debates. He kind of has the way that politicians speak that capture me personally. He's a Amy Klobuchar, Pete Buttigieg kind of tone and efficiency when he talks. And the next candidate I'm going to talk about is Troy Jackson, which was the Progressives' original number one choice. I believe he still is the number one choice for Progressives. Um, I personally liked him. Initially in the debate, he was shaky and fast and was kind of rambling. It seemed very like on the nose improv for Troy Jackson. He is endorsed by a lot of Bernie PACs, and they progressives seem to like Troy Jackson. I like him. He seemed to be basically saying the same stuff that Shah was saying. And his main thing that I wanted to talk about, his main asterisk, was sorry, I'm stumbling a little bit. His main asterisk, which isn't that serious, it was his connection with Graham Plattner, because unlike the other candidates who had just endorsed Graham Plattner, he had ran with Plattner's campaign front and center, being the second in the primary for senator, I believe, or I guess under Mills probably. He was running for either a senator or governor, but he campaigned front and center with Plattner. That was a big thing they tried to paint immediately after Plattner dropped out, as the Republicans were like, "Oh, but he's basically Plattner." It seemed like that narrative failed very quickly, and Troy Jackson was able to avoid that connection pretty well. And I think he did a fantastic job at just completely separating himself um, from Plattner as a whole. I think Troy Jackson, while not as progressive as Democrats would probably want, oh yeah, he also used to be a Republican, and that is seen as with some a concern. I think that's actually a good thing to run a Democrat, a progressive Democrat who used to be a Republican. I genuinely think that that could be one of the best things for the progressive Democratic Party. I believe it's a whole different party than Democrats. That's why I say that. Um, which is again a good thing. I'm kind of I don't want to say something and someone takes it in the wrong way. That is a positive thing. That I think they're seen as two different sides now of the Democratic Party. Troy Jackson had a solid night. He just started off really shaky, but he seemed to gain confidence over the night. Um, I think that would become an issue with Susan Collins. Luckily for him, it's really easy to paint the picture of Susan Collins being way worse than Mainers actually think she is. As again, like I said, she's perceived as some sort of god in Maine for some reason. And I'm gonna just get straight to the last candidate, just so I could talk about this, connecting this issue right here. Is Shah was by far the absolute best debater on that stage, without a doubt. He did so well. One of the best speakers of the entire Democratic Party in the country. This guy, I didn't even think I liked this guy, by the way, before the debate. I'm not just glazing him because I liked him or I preferred him. I did not like this guy going into the debate. I did not know much about him at all. Um, Fantastic debate performance. He cleared everybody else. The only guy who, I say everyone had a bad debate performance besides him and Jackson. Jackson had an average debate performance. Everyone else did bad. Shah, fantastic. I cannot overstate that enough. If Democrats really need to get their voice out right now and say who they prefer, especially if it is Shah, because he's not supposed to be the favorite right now. He's like in third. He's like behind Bellows and Troy Jackson right now. Um, but after watching that debate, I expect there to be a lot of shifts in the Democratic Party's preference for whoever runs in Maine. His one asterisk though is an old scandal. I will put some stuff about it on the screen because I'm not educated enough about it to talk about it um at least extensively, but it is probably the worst one out of all the other candidates. So again, I understand if people chose Troy Jackson. If you're choosing someone off of electability, I would say pick Shaw. If you're choosing someone off of who deserves it the most, who can still win, Troy Jackson. If you're a progressive Democrat, I would personally be happy with either of those candidates. If they pick Jordan Wood, Um, that is very concerning. And if they pick Bellows, that's kind of just upsetting. But I think that they're going to stick with what most Mainers want because it's more important to win the state with whatever candidate is favored the most rather than it is to lose the state with an APAC Democrat. I will also be making a video probably tonight or tomorrow, if I can anyway, maybe the day after, about Trump's speech tonight, which starts really soon. But yeah, I just wanted to get out and make this video. I think that, I might as well do this, add this, because it's on the prediction map. I might as well mess with this. If Troy Jackson wins the primary, or gets nominated for the primary, if we're calling it a primary, I think he wins by 3 to 4 points. If Shah wins the primary, I think he wins by 5 or 6 points. If either of the other candidates win, it's losable. I think the candidates could lose. I think that Peter Wood would win by like half a point, and that Bellows would lose by like 1 or 2 points. It would be really concerning for me if Bellows or Wood is nominated instead of the other two ones that I would consider progressives personally. And again, there's a reason it should be a progressive. Not just because, oh, I'm a progressive. The reason it should be a progressive is because Plattner was a progressive and he won the nomination by a lot. People didn't vote for him because of his character. People voted for him for what he was going to do in the Senate and what he said he was going to do. People liked his policies more than corporate Democratic policies. People like Graham Plattner. Or liked Graham Plattner. They like the idea of Graham Plattner. It is important to recognize that the progressive Democrats and Democratic Socialists as a whole are getting more popular than the Democratic Party. A poll came out the other day that they are actually more favorable than general moderate Democrats. That is a actual fact. They are 20 points higher than moderate Democrats. Younger voters prefer them much more. If you care about getting the younger voters out, you need to vote. You need to get candidates that they want into office. There's a lot of conflict of interest with doing that with people who are in charge of the Democratic Party, and that's why it's taking so long. But I had a whole tangent about this and about Abdul in Michigan, how he could be absolutely cooked. And progress is either the progress will continue for progressives or it'll get sent back by 10 years because of how much Democrats are fighting the progressive change in the party. But yeah, if you're new to this channel, again, please subscribe and most importantly, hit notifications because I really miss having my frequent subscribers. I haven't uploaded that much recently, but I plan on doing it a lot more. I've been enjoying making the videos. I've been talking very well in them, in contrast to my old videos from when I was like 16 and stuff. But yeah, if you want real takes from somebody who has a good history of predictions and how stuff will affect election performance, just any kind of analysm, I don't know if that's a word. Okay. Then I suggest you subscribe because I mostly just like the interaction. And the problem with the interaction is I wouldn't even care about the subscribers if people interacted with me, but I'm not going to get any if people don't. Even if you hate me, you should do it because you can argue with me. And especially since the dislike button's gone, how are you going to dislike my videos? But yeah, thank you guys for watching this video and coming back and saying hi to me and interacting with me. And I will see you guys probably in the next video about, depending on how consequential Trump's speech is, there's a whole thing as going to be a Chinese. Now it's China related rather than Georgia specifically related. They've kind of changed the narrative about what they were going to say in the debate, and he's going to use it as a major talking point into overturning in midterm results that he doesn't like. It's going to be a big thing. Or it's going to be a big nothing burger where he says no evidence and he just wants to incite violence when they lose in the midterms. This is the first Trump elections since 2020 where he's been in office and he can actually supposedly do something about it. We'll see what they're actually going to do, but I am going to watch that speech in around 20 minutes so I can educate myself on if my predictions are useless or not, or let's not. Oh yeah, there's also a thing where he wants to there's going to be a thing tonight. Supposedly this could be an excuse for him to decertify voting machines, either making voting way harder to do in person, he's more easily manipulatable, or he's going to use it to push forward Kingdom, the Kingdom, what are they called? Dominion voting machines. I was thinking of King's Dominion. Uh, the Republicans bought the Dominion voting machines shortly after the 2024 election. Um, and it seems like they could be attacking all other voting machines that they don't own, which is definitely a little bit of a red flag. I'm amazed they're even allowed to own voting machines because it was previously owned by an independent organization, but I guess maybe there's regulations lifted so they could buy it. I'm not sure. It's a whole thing, but we'll see how that goes. You guys have a great night. Bye bye.